Hello, everybody. You have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see.
Dude.
Good. How about you?
I've got some good news. I've got some good news for you.
Oh, yeah?
You know you wanted a flux capacitor?
Oh, yeah.
I took that out of the TARDIS. Right, okay, the problem is, of course, in America, you're familiar with the Back to the Future, which talks about a flux capacitor.
Oh,
Of course, the TARDIS doesn't work on a flux capacitor. Now, I did speak with Peter, and I explained that I'm going to send it to a friend in America. So he said, well, keep the explanation as to how it works very simple, otherwise they'll not understand it. So I'll just give you a sort of a quick rundown of how the thing works.
Right.
Do you know of the concept of a black hole?
Yes.
It stretches time.
Right. Yes.
Right.
It slows it down and stretches it. Yes.
So therefore, if you could create a black hole that you could enter, you could then be basically sort of sent out anywhere that you wanted to go.
If you could manage to get back out at some point, you could travel into the future. Yeah.
No. What's the one big problem with a black hole?
That it's
gravity.
Hungry and it ends
it's
up
gravity. It's
crushing
gravity. You would end up being crushed. Can you remember? Have you heard of a place in Lebanon called Baalbek?
No, can't say that I have.
It's 10,000 years, even before like Rome and before like the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians were building all their stuff.
Yeah.
And some of the stones are so big that they are sort of like something like 2,000 tons in weight.
Right.
And nobody can figure out how, because they had to get them there by sea.
Right.
Because the nearest places that there's
right. So it's not native. It's not native stone. No. Right.
So what you have to do, you have to create an anti-gravitational force, which allows you to then lift these stones so that they lose gravity. And this is what this machine does. This is the inside there. You create the vortex for your black hole. This is your anti-gravitational. You go in there and you get sent out of any one of these ports here at the okie dokie. So there you go. I said I would do it for you.
Hey, it's good stuff,
okay,
buddy.
Okay. So that's a brief sort of explanation for it. Obviously, you know, it's confusing because, as I say, you've had this Back to the Future, and what those three silly bits of tape are meant to do is anybody's guess, you know.
Yeah.
But they don't allow you to travel in the future. You know, if you think about the science, you need a black hole, but you don't need to be crushed. Those are the two main
the
parts.
The Time Lords harnessed a black hole.
Yes.
In order to make their ability of time travel possible.
Yeah.
Also, Omega, the Time Lord Omega, basically ended up sacrificing himself in the, basically the plan that he engineered in order to capture a dying star that was going to turn into a black hole, and he ended up in like this alternate, like the negative aspect of our own universe. Like if we're the positive, he was like in the negative side type of thing. And interesting Doctor Who story. But yeah, that's what the Time Lords did. So funny stuff.
Sort of in an antimatter state.
Yes, in an antimatter state. That was exactly what it was.
Which was touched on in the, believe it or not, in the episode Lost in Space, which has got far more credence than obviously Back to the Future.
Right.
You know, right. But remember, of course,
people love Back to the Future, Paul. Come on, people love those movies.
I love Christopher Lloyd, but Back to the Future did. Apart from the scene where he shows Chuck Berry's brother how to play guitar.
Yeah, that was funny. The first movie was pretty good. I liked I liked a lot about the first movie. McFly, and just everything about it. Watching his dad get pushed around, and then all this, everything that you see happening. It's all funny, and then seeing Biff get knocked out and all that. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Yep.
But the whole idea of the DeLorean, I mean, because the DeLorean looks so cool. It's like this stainless steel. It just looks so kind of futuristic, and it had the doors that came open like
Gullwing, they're called.
Yeah. So it just seemed cooler, and then the fact that it was a time machine. There was the thing where you put the coordinates, the flux capacitor, and the thing in the back where you put the plutonium. I mean, it was just fun. I don't know. Let's see, in 1985, I was 9 or 10 years old. So
yeah, but the point here is, you see,
and I thought it was great.
Yeah, okay. In Back to the Future, you've got something that looks like it could be a time machine. Doctor Who, the whole purpose of Doctor Who is to make it obvious to try and make it obvious that it isn't a time machine by disguising itself as a London police phone box.
Right.
The clever bit about this is that it looks like it's off an Audi, and it says Audi on it, but it's not. Now, I mentioned that you'd the other day. I noticed on Messenger that you were still up at about like 1:45 in the morning, and that
that could have just been my computer was left on, but
yeah. So as I say, from now on you are officially Dracula. I won't ask you what you've just had for tea. But no, seriously, getting on to I haven't actually had a chance to speak to you really since you put out a call asking for people to discuss their piercings. Now, I am a freak, I must admit, as you probably already know. On the basis that I have 0 tattoos, 0 piercings, it's just something that's never interested me. So that's so.
I said
you don't either. No,
but
no,
I did have a pierced ear when I was a teenager, but it's not pierced anymore.
Yeah. What always concerned me about that was, and it was something that was told to me as a youngster, was that if you ever got involved in a fight, it's something that somebody could just yank,
grab and
it'll
hurt. It's not going to kill you, but it's going to hurt like hell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's just something I've never been interested in,
But usually when you're that angry that you're in a fight, you don't feel it. Those
Probably
are the things that you feel afterwards.
It's been quite a while since I was ever involved in any kind of a fight.
I know.
Although my mum does have a school report from me as a youngster saying that I excelled at likes of needlework and a few other subjects, but tended to get involved in playground arguments. was the comment.
Always try to be the smartest guy in the room, like Blackadder,
huh? Yeah. Now, the whole purpose of obviously asking about that was to do with Teresa Holbach and having this belly button tattoo, which is quite interesting because of the fact that
she didn't have the tattoo.
Sorry, she did. No, that's the point. That's right. Yeah. But isn't it interesting that they actually Tom Fassbender mentions about having a tattoo, which Brendan says. He says I'd.
At first,
of course, he never saw one. Of course, he never saw one because he was never there, right? But he says no, I never saw it. And then they ask him, what? Well, do you disagree with me? Is that right?
Yep.
Do you disagree with me?
Yes, and
he says,
disagree. And at that point, and what people need to understand here is exactly the psychology of what was going on at that moment. Tom Fassbender looks at Brendan and says, "Do you disagree with me when I say that?" Brendan immediately sees that as, oh shoot, I messed up. And they're about to start telling me to be honest and tell the truth. That's to my mind, that is the thought process that happens there. So Brendan, out of a knee-jerk reaction, because he doesn't want them to start telling him to tell the truth and all that, immediately acquiesces and says, no, I don't disagree with you. You know.
So my question would be, what on earth does the state and the arm-back judges think they're doing by actually saying this proves that Brendan's bill? I think I'm not too sure what they're trying to say, but are they trying to say that his will wasn't overborne?
I mean,
that he was able to sort of sort of reject what Tom and Mark were saying, because if that's what they think, did they even watch the video?
Right. Did they even read that transcript? That part of that transcript that they included in their decision? Did they even read that? Because they're judges. These are people that, like lawyers, have been reading briefs of all sorts for many, many, many years. Their reading comprehension is through the roof. So how am I supposed to believe that they innocently misunderstood this back and forth between Fassbender and Brendan? Because it clearly shows that Brendan acquiesced to a false fact. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Do you disagree? No. If somebody says, do you disagree, and you say no, that means you agree. That's the way that works, folks. So, yeah.
I mean, unless you took it in the first half of that was, we know she had a tattoo, and they ask him, did you see it? And he says, well, I never saw it.
He says, He goes, while he's like shaking his head, saying no.
That's right. Basically. So, I mean, if you cut it there, he has disagreed.
He has.
And then if you say, well, do you disagree with me then? And are some people assuming that his no is a no to that previous question? Because if so, that they are getting it completely wrong.
Right. Well, you got to understand what's happening there. I mean, all of the psychological tactics that have been being used on Brendan the whole time are still in effect. They're still there. And there's certain things that when they say to Brendan or look at him a certain way, he, through the course of this interrogation, has learned to react to the cues that he gets from them. And when Fassbender looks at him and says, do you disagree with me when I say that, Brendan? It's like Fassbender was fishing for something more.
Yeah.
He was fishing for something more. And
he wanted him to guess something else.
But what Brendan interpreted it as was Brendan kind of went like, uh-oh, I think I said the wrong thing. So he immediately says, no, I don't disagree with you. Because that way we don't have a problem, right? Because then that's I think, and that's not what Tom Fassbender wanted, but I think that's the way Brendan interpreted it.
Yeah,
that's what I think Brendan. That's totally the way I think Brendan interpreted that back and forth, and Tom claiming that this proves that he was resisting. It proves exactly the opposite of that. It shows he flip flops on whether or not this tattoo's there. So that by itself is enough to make you go, "What the hell? How is the Seventh Circuit, these people with a high reading comprehension that can read these same transcripts I'm looking at and watch the same video I'm looking at, and they come to the conclusion that Brendan is resisting there? It's really baffling." So.
Well, two ththings. When it comes to your judges, do you know what they are? Educated idiots.
Yeah, well, maybe not.
They've got all these degrees that they've done, and they've got no life skills whatsoever, no real understanding of the outside world. I mean, if they did, what about the fact that more than 75 times during the interview, they tell Brendan that he's lying. And on every occasion, he changes his story.
Mm-hmm.
If that doesn't tell you something, then
absolutely,
yeah.
Especially the part that the Innocence, I think it was the Innocence Network pointed out, where Brendan straight up at one point tells them, "Well, I've been guessing." I mean, he just straight up says it right there on the video, and the reason they just like. Go right blinders like that didn't happen. Okay, next thing. Here we go.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
that's what they were doing. It's ridiculous.
And
It's sickening.
and the reason he does that is because, as he was saying, that at school he guesses, knowing that the teacher is going to give him the right answer.
Right.
You know, and so therefore that's his modus operandum. He guesses at things, knowing that you know it's all going to get sorted out. He was quite happy to go along with everything they were saying about this assault on Teresa Holbach, knowing full well that they would investigate it and then they would come back with what really happened. You know.
Right.
And of course they never did they?
No, yeah. The way he understood the world,
Yeah.
it had to be taken into account, and it wasn't. There was never any special care here. Never at any freaking point of the process was there anything at all resembling special care. His public defender sold him down the river. I mean, it's just a comedy of errors of what the state did to him, and the fact that this conviction is being allowed to stand with the questionable nature of this confession, which was overturned, upheld, and then in a move that was less likely in terms of probability, they get an en-banc review. There was a better chance. Basically, put it this way: before he went into the en-banc review, people were talking about it, and they're like, he's got a better chance of getting in front of SCOTUS than he does getting an en-banc review.
Yeah.
Then he got an en-banc review. Right? And then it gets overturned, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then we're talking about the things that they misrepresented in that decision right now, which was the control question, which we were just talking about. But to add one more thing to that is that with the recent development of listening to Karen Halbach's call to report Teresa Halbach missing, we hear her talk about the belly button piercing. Now she says, "I think she has one." When you're trying to help law enforcement find somebody that you care about, you don't say things that you don't think are there. You don't throw out red herrings so that the investigators get confused and possibly fail to find, the person that you're hoping they find, right? You're not going to be suggesting ridiculous things. You're going to be suggesting things that you think are actually there. Dang it. So you're going to be suggesting, just like she ends up going on, and she had earrings and whatever. Now there's happens to be, it seems like a lot cut out of that call. I mean, it's kind of choppy, that call. Seems like some, like maybe 3 gaps in that call. It would be interesting to know what lie in those gaps. Probably some more description of Teresa was in those gaps, and that would be interesting to hear. But there we have her saying that there was a belly button piercing. And why wouldn't Brendan bring that up?
Yep.
When they're asking him about this tattoo, and he's not sure about that, and Fassbender goes, "Do you disagree with me?" Why wouldn't he go, "Well, she had a piercing," like instead of, I don't know. It would make more sense to me that if Brendan knew about a piercing, he would have at that point talked about it. Because he felt overwhelmed by this whole control question, which he didn't understand what the control question was, of course. He just thought it was the same as everything else. That's why he reacted the way he did.
Yeah.
He felt like Tom Fassbender was about to start scolding him again.
Yeah.
So.
You touched on something very interesting then that I don't really want to go into too much detail just yet. We'll maybe save it for a later time. But, Len Kaczynski, Michael O'Kelly, we're both in full agreement that they were planted by the state in order to garner this false confession from Brendan.
Certainly significant evidence to suggest it.
And as people have pointed out to me, are we so naive as to believe that it was only Brendan that had lawyers planted to try and secure a conviction?
Right.
But we'll have to maybe that would be a whole long discussion. So I'm gonna skip to my next point, and it was just to say well done to Carla Garcia for doing the video. And just a wee observation, maybe the ladies out there could contact you rather than you having to go and contact them, because if Carla Garcia can do it, and I can do it, Mark Hoddenett can do it, everybody can do it, and it would just be so much more powerful if we had more and more people, coming on, having a chat with you, given their perspective as well, which is always very interesting, to hear from all these different people that we know. Anyway, I've given you a list. I might start trying to sort of coax one or two, shall we say? Well, I think you've got one or two.
I was trying to get Cindy Ann today.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten a response from her yet, but I'm going to see if I can get Cindy Ann to do one.
Yeah. And also, I thought I was very, very impressed with her when you were talking about.
I got to ask Tracy Coe too.
Yes.
The next one I got to ask is Tracy Coe.
Yeah, when we had when you had the discussion with Carla about the bonnet catch, about the DNA on it.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, 2 seconds. Are you going off to walk? Are you?
Yep.
Okay, it's the boss here. When you were talking about the bonnet catch and the we're babysitting a friend's dog for the next 3 days, and. She put it very, very succinctly when she said that the amount of DNA that was extracted from the hood latch by the state crime lab was the equivalent of 90 people actually putting their hands all over the
90. It would take 90. You'd have to take 90 times the amounts that they were getting from their experiment that they did, because they were getting less than a tenth of an anagram.
Yeah.
So in order to get all the way to two almost full nanograms, you got to multiply that tenth of an anagram many, many, many times to get to there. So, it's a ridiculously, just a huge gap between these amounts that doesn't make sense,
Yep.
And
the thing is, right, as I'm sure we all know. You try and open the bonnet of a car that you're not familiar with, and you're fiddling about underneath trying to find the catch. So I would imagine that they've swabbed, in Zellner's test, they've swabbed where people have gone under and tried to find the place, and to find that amount of DNA, absolutely ridiculous. As you put, equivalent to 90 people. My next point. Well, I actually sent you this question, didn't I? And I asked, why is it that lawyers have such a bad reputation?
Well,
because
a few bad apples spoil it for the bunch.
It's a pretty big bunch.
There's a lot of bad apples too.
Yeah,
there's a lot of King Kratches out there, and a lot of what's her name, Kim Worth, the innocence denier
Worthy,
from Illinois. There's
a
lot of those out there. There's a lot of those, pardon my French, but scumbags out there. Masquerading as people that have the best, what's best for everybody and the people at large at heart, but they don't.
Yep.
Kim Worthy could have headed that whole situation off and saved the people of Illinois lots of money if she had followed the evidence that the hitman who came in and admitted to all of it and led them to the corroborating evidence of the gun that matched the ballistics for the crime and all that. Had she done it 8 days after the boy had been convicted, he wouldn't have gotten anywhere near $450,000, almost $500,000. He would have gotten a lot less. So these are the practical implications of when we have these dishonest prosecutors and lawyers out there doing these sort of things, because ultimately, look what it cost them. And it was obvious that the kid was innocent. It was obvious.
Yeah, but Mark Hodenick summed it up, didn't he? When I was listening yesterday, when he said that for some people, even proof of their innocence for them doesn't justify them having a retrial.
Right.
it's
sad but true. Sad but true.
And Chad was saying that in America, lawyer is another word for liar. and I get exactly what he says, because a lot of people think of their lawyer as somebody that's going to help them get off with something, that they're going to go in and lie in court for them, rather than them having to get on the witness stand and lie. The lawyer will do it for them. And also, obviously, there's the money aspect. I mean, as soon as you go into a lawyer's office, the first thing they do is they tell you their list of costs, and what they're going to charge you. I have a certain sympathy with them in the sense that they are providing a service. It's not like you go into a shop and you buy something, you take it home, you've got that, that flux capacitor or whatever, sat on your mantelpiece, or your, and in a sense, I can relate to that in that being a gigging musician, we used to have in the bad old days. And hopefully Rick Marler is going to watch this at some point. I'm sure he would totally agree with me. The number of times at the end of the gig, you're going around trying to find who the hell is it that's going to pay us for this gig, and people aren't bothered because you've gone along, you've done the gig, and they're not bothered, about the fact that all the band needs paid, and some people will deliberately, in the past, were kind of obscure about it, they were, well, send us an invoice and we'll send you a check, and it's like, whoa, hold on a sec, that wasn't what was agreed. So I mean, from a gigging point of view, I must admit, we know as a band we insist on a deposit and the balance before the gig is actually done, but I still can't get past the fact that Glyn and Kelly walked away from such a potential large cut of, well, even if Steve had settled a civil suit for, say, 5 to 6 million, they took 40% of his 400,000. They took 160,000. It was held in Steve Glyn's account, wasn't it?
Right.
We've been sent the doc. Why did they walk away from that?
Yeah. Well,
I
don't know the whys and what for for everything, but
I think they were scared. I think they saw exactly what was happening with Steve. Steve Avery. What they had done to Steve Avery. And I think as well, hopefully you'll agree with me. What makes Stephen Avery's case so unique for me is the fact that it doesn't matter where you are in the world, there will be wrongful convictions where people have made mistakes. One of the things that's happening more and more in America is that you're getting convictions based on coincidence. The fact that he, somebody could have been there, therefore he could have done it, therefore he's guilty.
Circumstantial. Yes.
Circumstantial. And so obviously I accept that there are some genuine mistakes. And you highlighted the point about the one guy who said, whoa, hold on a sec, start again. I can't remember who the name of that attorney was, but remember you were praising him because he was one of the honest guys.
Yeah, that's that was from the Pink Gun Mystery. That was
that's it. Yeah.
That was it was
the guy
James
that was accused
Laren,
of shooting.
I think. James Laren. I believe it was.
Yeah. But the point about Stephen Avery is the phone call from Brown County in 94, 95. This is the whole point of it. It shows that this wasn't a wrongful conviction by accident.
Right.
It shows it was totally
willful,
deliberate, right from the word go. And I do have a certain sympathy with Manitou wanting to get Stephen Avery off the streets when he's just gone and rammed his car into his cousin's car and knocked her off the road. There was a kid involved. You know,
Yeah.
he rightfully got 6 years for that. He also pointed a gun at her. Totally wrong. You know, nobody condones that. But what they then did was they deliberately prosecute, and then when even you know, I mean, they knew right from the start that it was Gregory Allen. You know, they stitch him up, get him convicted, and then with that phone call,
which sucks for Gregory Allen's future victims, by the way. Go ahead.
Sorry, in what way?
I said, which sucks for the future victims.
Oh yeah. Which was absolutely. I mean, we hear about two.
Yeah.
You kind of suspect there'd have been a lot more than that. You know that weren't.
Oh, there probably was.
Reported.
He had a bad problem with peeping, and sometimes his peeping got out of control, and that was what was getting him into trouble.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure there was a lot of girls that got peeped on. He had a thing for young girls. Like to try to find young teenage girls and stuff. He got chased. I mean, he would get chased by angry fathers. I mean, he was making a freaking a spectacle of himself. Yeah, you know. So I don't know.
Yep. And I mean, even Manitowoc police tried to tell the county that, you know, you've got the wrong guy. They went to Penny Bernstein. They tell her, you know, they've got the wrong guy. It's this Gregory Allen. She gets the phone call from Gregory Allen, you know, and they still tell her, you know, oh no, we've got it right. But I'm just wondering, in that phone call that Colburn took, which detective do you think he put it through to? Could it have been a James Link? We hear of no other person other than Colburn, Link, and straight through to when the report is finally done 8 years later, Kenneth Peterson. Sorry, Kevin Peterson is a well-known cricketer, but not that you would know him. Kenneth Peterson puts it in this safe, and then you know you watch him, and he's saying, "No, I've never seen that before." Well, who put it in his safe?
Yeah,
if he didn't put it in, who did put it in? You know?
Oh, I know. They just lie. They just lie, and that's. I mean, that was the point of why I put up. If you guys remember, I put up a video about the Michael Bell case.
Yeah.
You know, this kid was basically assassinated by police officers in his own driveway, his father's driveway.
Yes.
And I mean, these officers proceeded to go into courtrooms and go into depositions and lie and lie and lie. And they continually used the forensics to prove them as liars again and again and again. And it's sad, but to this day, this boy's father fought, and he got legislation in Wisconsin so that any police-involved shooting could no longer be investigated by the agency who basically committed it. So in other words, no self-investigations anymore. It has to be an outside agency that comes in and investigates the police shooting to see whether or not there was any wrongdoing or foul play or anything like that, right?
Absolutely.
It's called, you know, basically fought for this independent investigations is what it is. He's been asking Brad Schimmel to please now start one for his son. To do this, to start one with the state's resources, an independent-based investigation into what happened with his son, and Brad Schimmel is dragging his feet and saying, "Nope, you know what? You already got, you know, you got a settlement. You're, you know, this and that." He's like basically like that's he's basically declaring that it's not retroactive, so it doesn't go back now that this legislation has been passed. Brad Schimmel is standing in the way, saying it doesn't work retroactively to go back and help him with his son's case. Essentially, it's pretty sad.
Yeah.
But that's what we're dealing with in that you know state. I mean, they have some dirty things going on, and they are desperate to hide them. Their motto is, you know, lie, lie, lie. You know, lie, 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 deny, deny, deny.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely. Because getting back to this, you know, it was so deliberate. Glynn and Kelly had such such a good case against Manitowoc, against Vogel, against
absolutely
Kisirk,
they did. Yeah.
you know, and they were sitting, both Glynn and Buting were sitting on a commission along with Peg Lautenschlager.
Yep.
And Peg comes out with this statement saying that from now on we're not going to basically be involved in any kind of tunnel vision investigating. We're going to do all these various things that we're going to do from now on to make sure that it doesn't happen. And guess what they went and do? They make another prime example of all the things you don't do by framing Steve again.
Yeah.
That to me is the reason why Glynn and Kelly walk away from it, because they realise they haven't got a cat and hell's chance.
They knew that they were under threat now, and they knew that the fix was in, and they started to see the writing on the wall. And I bet you, as soon as Peg started to pervert the purpose of the Avery Commission, those guys probably, because they were part of it, probably started to see the writing on the wall. I'm wondering how many lawyers that were involved with the Avery Commission were involved with it, but didn't necessarily agree with maybe even a lot of what was going on there, but didn't know what they could really do about it on their own or in the minority.
Well, I mean, the sentiments of the commission to have proper DNA testing and interview of proper interviewing and all the other stuff, the no more tunnel vision, the proper testing of forensics, all that kind of stuff, and in particular it was
like the
because of the penny
that happened in the Stephen Avery case.
Exactly,
Well, that's what I mean. They're full of crap. They were talking a big game, but
talking it, but not doing it. Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous from that point of view.
Absolutely.
But as I say, for those two to walk away, and then I was presented with a statement attributed to Steve Glynn about the fact that when Steve was arrested, it was he's now quoted as being it was the worst day of his life, and he felt so bad about the fact that he had helped to get this monster out of jail to then go and do this.
Yeah, well,
I'm not buying that
it
at
doesn't
all.
make sense any of it.
I'm not buying that at all because he surely he's not stupid.
Yeah.
He must surely be able to see what's going on. Trouble is, as I've been saying all along, they don't bother looking up the food chain and pointing the finger. As Chad pointed out, Jerry Buting should have got Fassbender on the stand and got Peg Lautenschlager on the stand and said to Peg, right, did Thomas Fassbender conduct the investigation? He was trained by me to do so. And she would have had to say no. And that would have been the end of Brendan's case there and then.
Yeah. And
that's I mean it's something we feel quite strongly about. We've got to tell these people, it may be in the case of Glynn and Kelly and Strang and Buting, it's a little bit of that term that you taught me a while back, CYA.
Yes. Or CMA.
But they have got to now start pointing the finger and start showing us exactly what the sort of chain of command was. And even if Jerry simply came out and said, look, I would have to admit that being in that commission with Fallon, with Lautenschlager, I did feel a sense of they're gonna start putting pressure on us.
Yeah.
And just admit that that there was mistakes made. Whether or not it was totally deliberate on their behalf to make it look as if they were doing a good job for Steve, when in fact they weren't, because they knew that they you've got jury tampering, obviously, which doesn't help in the mix of things. But I wish they would come out and at least explain, and at least go into some way to answering some of the questions that Chad raises, because I think
I think it's going to be inevitable that at some point the question is going to be being asked so loudly from so many different people that I think eventually there will be an answer. It's just, it's a slow process for people like reading and then passing along the information in Chad's book and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, the question is beginning to get asked, and once it reaches a point where it's steady and kind of loud enough, I imagine that's when somebody might want to finally say something about it. I don't know. I'm not as convinced about what's going on. I'm not so sure about Chad's full on theory of what's going on, but there is a lot of things that he points out that are worth asking the questions, because they, the things that are pointed out do look kind of bad.
Yeah. So. I mean, as I say, simply a case of, did you feel under pressure? Did you feel like, we have to be careful here what we do? And if they say, well, yeah, okay, we can, there was a sense of, we didn't want to tread too much on people's feet up the food chain. Right. We're not going to lambast them for that. Right. They're human. They were assigned to do a particular job.
Their own careers.
Within certain parameters and certain frames of what they were to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would imagine it would have probably been considered quite rude to have called Peg as a witness, but But on the other hand, it's a guy that's being that's being convicted for a second time for something that he, being wrongfully convicted again, and it's to some of them it's just it's little more than a game.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is what I don't like.
The way they all denied in the 85 case. Look at even Michael Griesbach. I mean, there's that part in Exhibits of Fear Part 3 that I made, talking about Gene Cush and Mark Rohr. And there's that point where, at the end, where they're asking about what was sent to the state capitol and everything by him and Michael Griesbach. And apparently, a fair portion of the data collected was left out. It was apparently everything pertaining to like any kind of communication that took place or something like that. And so the decision ended up being based on partial facts, partial investigation.
In particular,
it's like the point I'm getting at with that is, it's like Michael Griesbach is always saying about how, he was going to bat for Stephen with the 85 case. No, I don't think so. With that right there, where Mark Rohr is saying that, we didn't send da-da-da-da-da, that tells me that Michael Griesbach was, at that point, part of it.
Absolutely.
Because he chose to do that.
In particular, the email from Doug Jones that actually mentions the phone conversation that Couchet had about Andy Coleman taking the call in 95 and them sitting on it. That in particular is particularly important because
so when you hear Michael Griesbach telling you, Avery did this, I believe he was innocent for 85 thing, but in this case he's guilty. Well, it doesn't look like it, and then the fact that he does that, that's actually before all this stuff with Teresa goes down.
Yeah.
When he does that. Right? That's the crucial point here. Because if supposedly it was seeing what happened with Teresa and everything that he became convinced, Avery did this. Well, he wouldn't have known well, he shouldn't have known what would happen to Teresa later on, a year later or whatever it might have been. He, at that time, according to what he's always been saying, he would have been looking out for Stephen because Stephen had spent so many years wrongfully incarcerated and everything, and like I say, he didn't have the Teresa Halbach thing to hold against Stephen yet. Yet he did that. He left that out. Him and Mark Rohrer left that out, and so that's the part that kills me because it's like, okay, no, Michael Griesbach is in on it. He's in on the fix.
I have a huge problem with Michael Griesbach and the fact that he protested so much about Dennis Vogel, and he's purely trying to deflect attention away from their own. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if with the attorney's office being threatened with bankruptcy as well.
Yeah.
That Peg didn't say, that Michael Griesbach wasn't part of that chain of command.
Right.
I knew exactly what was going down.
I think that he kept knocking on doors that people didn't want him knocking on. He was going ahead, and at first he was diligently trying to, seek justice for Stephen Avery and trying to push the thing up the ladder and everything. But I think he was knocking on doors that people were resentful, and eventually they ended up, taking him into a room, giving him some options of how he could move forward and what his future would look like, depending on which doorway he chose. Type of situation. That's what it would seem like to me, because by him leaving that evidence of the phone call to Colburn from Brown County, by them leaving that out, obviously knowingly, because Rohrer recalls it from memory pretty quickly and easily, that shows that Michael Griesbach turned on Stephen Avery before Teresa Halbach, and so that takes away his credibility in almost anything that he says. Really.
Yep. Listen, dude, it's well past midnight.
Yes, and I gotta go. But it's been a pleasure, my friend, as always.
As always.
To the next time.
And I don't know how I'm going to get it's a big heavy lump of metal, this this time travel thing. But leave it with me, and I'll see what I can do.
Oh no, yeah, okay. Well, we'll see. I may have my own here, so yeah. That thing might be expensive to try to ship over the pond, my friend.
I think it might be, yes, unless I could get Doctor himself to drop it off sometime.
You're the guy that was fretting over betting $5 on Green Bay, so I know that you're not looking to go spend the money to send that thing overseas.
What? No. I put a $5 on Philadelphia Eagles.
Well,
and I won.
Well, on
and
the
I
Eagles.
won.
Yeah, that's right. It was the Eagles.
Yeah, I won.
Oh no, Green Bay was almost going to be there, but they lost, right?
Green Bay were never ever going to be anywhere near there. It's like it's a little bit like one of the best quotes I ever heard was, I think it was by John Farrack, when he said that one of the problems here is trying to criticize the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department and the government in Manitowoc, and present that to the people of Manitowoc is like trying to tell them, by the way, Green Bay, they suck. The local, the people that like the sheriff's office there, they're not going to want to listen to that at all. Even when Stephen and Brendan are proven innocent, even proof of innocence to them will not be enough to constitute a fair.
They should have a retrial. Stephen Avery's guilty of the 1985 Penny Bernson assault. So
no, they don't. They don't. They just say that.
Well,
don't they? They say that. And,
I mean, if they have any intelligence at all, they don't believe that. I can't rule out that they don't have any intelligence. So
well, I had to make that tweet earlier this week about Robert Herman, because I've been waiting on him now to make that call to Zelda.
Carla was all over him about the tarp over RAV4 and how he sent away the one guard that was there to guard it, and he had about 10 or 15 minutes alone under the tarp with it. Yeah, that was. She got pretty excited about telling that bit.
Yeah. No, as I said, if he's not going to try and get rid of the corruption in his department, then I'm sorry, Robert, but if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And it's not just Stephen Avery, it's not just Brendan Dassey, it's Ricky Hofstetler, it's a whole load of things going on in your sheriff department that you need to address, pal. Yeah. And what an absolutely terrible legacy you have left. You sent me that video about Manitowoc and about its proud history.
Yeah.
And it has a very, very proud history.
Now, I found it impressive. Actually.
Yeah. The mirror factory, for example, the shipbuilding, everything
right.
to do.
The shipbuilding was very impressive. Yeah.
The printing with the Hollywood.
Yes.
Hollywood gets its name from the fact that you use the wood from the holly right. tree to because you can't make posters with big letters using metal, right. So they were using this hard wood. Very very impressive. And look what that sheriff's department have done to the reputation of Manitowoc.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has sent it. As I said
tarnished.
to Robert. Yeah, as I said to Robert in my very first email to him, I said the best you can hope for is they set Manitowoc County away from the mainland, send it out across Lake Michigan, and the rest of the world will cheer as the place sinks. Because that's it's what a terrible if you're going to retire in the next 6 months, you have left an absolute mess. Yeah. I'm trying hard not to swear because I don't swear very often, but it is an absolute.
Not even to be like Charlie Barron's.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. yeah. He's some guy. Did you see? I sent him the video and showed him exactly where it was that we were discussing it, and he sent back that message to say that he absolutely loved the sort of banter between us, and the the ribbing and the poking and all that kind of stuff.
And the shirt.
Well, you see, the thing is that for me, I do have a serious side, but I very, 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 very rarely show that side of me. It's really only when I'm listening to some sort of really good classical music that sort of brings me to sort of sort of various emotions. Right. Most of the time, I think we've got to see the sort of the humour in things. Well, I certainly do. Yeah. My glass is always half full.
Right on.
I don't know about your Dr. Pepper. That was classic when you were filling it up or doing something right next to the microphone.
Yep. That call ran long.
You won't do that again. Because I know.
Plus,
exactly
we talked for 20 minutes, and then the recording ended up messed up because I had forgotten to put on my headphones.
Again.
So we had to start over.
Again.
I was like,
dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've got to go to work, and you've got to get some sleep.
Yep. We'll see you later, buddy. It's been a pleasure. We'll do this again.
As always. Catch you soon. Bye for now.
See you, buddy.
Bye-bye.